Every once in a while, the internet produces a sentence so profoundly absurd that historians should be forced to read it aloud. And today's sentence is, a fictional werewolf was cancelled before release after protesters allegedly mailed cow poop to corporate headquarters. Gang, this is somehow a real story and I wish I was joking. One of the most successful mobile games in the world just permanently cancelled a fictional character because the fandoms sent them cow poop. This is not a metaphor and not hyperbole, actual cow dung in the delivery lockers at corporate headquarters, alongside pomelo leaves, which I have learned are part of a cleansing ritual, and funeral flower arrangements addressed to the character they wanted dead. The character was announced on June 22 of this year. He was killed off on June 30th. He never made it to his launch date. And he was a werewolf in a fantasy game that already had a dragon and a merman on the romance roster. Brethren, the cryptid has gone past being concerned. At this point, the cryptid is staring at the wall. Hey everyone, welcome back to Lofi Apocrypha, where we talk about things that aren't that deep until they actually are. I'm your host, Mom Chilan, and today we're discussing the Love and Deepspace Valko situation, which, if you have no idea what any of those words mean, don't worry, I'll explain everything, because this is not really a story about a video game. It's a story about what happens when fans decide they own the thing they love, and what happens when the company agrees with them. Chapter 1. What the hell just happened? So, let me set the stage for people who do not have this game installed on their phone. Love and Deepspace is a Chinese otome game. For the uninitiated, otome games are romance visual novels where you play as a female protagonist and pursue relationships with typically a cast of extremely attractive men with tragic backstories. It's like The Bachelorette, except on your phone and you're the main character. It's a massive genre in East Asia, and Love and Deepspace is one of the biggest games. We're talking millions of players, okay? Hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. The fan base is dedicated, passionate, and, as we are about to see, capable of things. For years, the game had 5 romanceable love interests. 5. And the fandom has been very comfortable with those 5. Very territorial about the 5. Which, it's fine. People get attached. Then on June 22, 2026, the developers announced a 6th. His name was Valko. He was a werewolf. He was a tech CEO. He had the whole tameless beast aesthetic thing going on. Standard otome fare. He was scheduled to launch on the 9th of July. The Chinese fandom responded immediately, and I want to be clear. At a scale I genuinely struggle to convey, words are failing me. Over 50,000 formally written complaints, more than 2 million comments under a single Weibo post. The game reportedly lost close to 1 million followers across Chinese social platforms in a matter of days. The official Love and Deepspace App Store rating in China crashed to 2 stars, guys. People did not just post angry comments. They organized, they coordinated boycotts, they sent packages to the company headquarters. And those packages included, again, I'm not making this up, you can look it up yourself, cow dung, pomelo leaves, which are used in Chinese cleansing rituals to ward off evil, and funeral flower arrangements. For a fictional werewolf who had not yet appeared in the game. And on June 30th, the day that I'm recording this, Paper Games, the developer, issued a formal apology. they permanently canceled Valko. He will never appear in the game. He will never be a love interest for the main character. And they promised the audience that they will never add another love interest to the game again. Full stop. The roster is closed forever. A fictional man existed for 8 days before the fandom got him fired. Chat, are you seeing this? Chapter 2, The Contradictions. Okay, so what was the actual complaint? So 3 main things keep coming up on Reddit and all of the other articles that have discussed this conundrum. Number 1, some players were uncomfortable with what they perceived as ABO. Alpha, Beta, Omega dynamics. For those blissfully unaware, ABO is a subgenre of fanfiction that involves wolf pack hierarchy tropes, and it is a whole thing. 2, some players felt Valko looked too Western Caucasian. And 3, some players were simply angry about resource dilution. The idea that adding a 6th love interest would mean less content for the 5 they already loved. Now let's take these in order. The ABO thing. Look, I'm not here to litigate whether werewolf tropes and ABO is a moral ick. That is a conversation for people who are entrenched in that genre, and it's not a hill I'm willing to die on. What I will say is this. This is a fantasy otome game that already has a dragon love interest and a merman love interest, both of whom are by definition fantasy creatures with animal characteristics. The dragon has horns, scales, wings, and a tail. The merman is half fish. Nobody boycotted the fishman. The dragon got a pass, but the werewolf is where we draw the line? What? Are you guys seeing a pattern here? Because I'm not seeing a pattern. I am seeing a dragon, a merman, and a werewolf walking into a bar, and only one of them gets curb stomped in the parking lot. Then there's the looks too Western complaint. And here's where it gets genuinely hilarious for me, because one of the existing love interests, his name is Silas, looks, and I say this with respect, he looks like he walked off the set of a CBS or a Warner Brothers show. The man has platinum silver hair and the facial structure of someone who owns a vineyard in Tuscany. He's been on the roster for years. Nobody's sending cleansing rituals to headquarters over Silas. So what is actually going on here? Because this isn't about consistency. No one is keeping a spreadsheet. Nobody is applying a specific rubric. The rules are being invented in real time to justify a feeling. And the feeling is, this one, this wolf boy, he doesn't belong here. This one is not ours. We don't claim him. Which brings us to the resource dilution argument. And this one, I'll give it to him. I think this is a complaint that operates in good faith. Adding a 6th love interest in the game where resources are already spread across 5 characters is a legitimate concern, especially in a gacha model where players invest money into specific characters. I get it. But here's the thing. There is a difference between I'm worried about resource allocation and I'm sending cow poop to your office so you understand that this character must be blitzed off the face of the earth forever. One of those is feedback. The other is a war crime against the mailroom. Oh, and speaking of war crimes, before I roast these complaints, I want to be fair. There was a 4th objection that I need to address separately because it's the one that actually holds water. Valko's facility is in-game research lab. Remember, he's a tech CEO. His facility is numbered 0731. 0731. To catch you all up, Unit 731 was a real World War II Japanese biological warfare division that committed horrific war crimes, atrocities against Chinese civilians. Genuinely, historically monstrous stuff that actually happened, impacted people. If that reference was intentional, the backlash is warranted. That deserves legitimate criticism. If it was an accident, it was a catastrophic oversight that should have been caught. That's what the dev teams are for, guys. Because that is a choice. And here's the thing that actually makes this whole situation worse. That specific, valid, historically grounded complaint got completely drowned out by the noise, by the cow poop, by the funeral flowers, and the werewolf phobia. The one coherent objection in the pile got flattened into a general tantrum, and now no one's talking about it. The conversation should have happened. Hey, maybe you don't number your fictional facility after a war crime unit, and it got replaced by, ew, dog boy. Chapter 3, Parasocial Ownership. So what actually is happening here? Because this is not about werewolves or about ABO. It's not even really about love and Deepspace as a game. This is what happens when the relationship between a fan base and a product tips over into something the fan base was never supposed to have. Vetoing power. Here's the thing. These fans, they've spent years with the game. They have spent money, and in some cases, a lot of money. They have built communities, created fan art, written fan fiction, formed friendships, and formed identities around this thing. The emotional investment is real, and I'm not dismissing that. But here we go. Emotional investment is not the same as ownership. You do not own the restaurant because you eat there every week. Let us say how GW maneuvers Warhammer 40k. The problem is not that fans had opinions. The problem is the belief that parameters and rules don't apply to fans because they've spent more money on the game than the average person. So the problem is main character energy, the assumption that my emotional response is so important that it justifies overriding the creative direction of an entire product on behalf of millions of other players who, might have felt differently. And here's the part that's actually worrisome. The company agreed. Today, June 30th, Paper Games did not say, we hear your concerns and will adjust. They didn't say, let's wait how Valco performs before making decisions. They said, and obviously I'm paraphrasing, you're right, we're wrong, he's gone forever. No more love interest. The roster is closed. We apologize for trying something new. That is not a company managing a fan base. That is a company surrendering to a mob. And history repeatedly, aggressively suggests that when you give a mob veto power over art, you don't get better art. You get less art. You get scared art. You get apologies instead of werewolves. Chapter 4. Selective outrage as public performance. Now, I want to talk about something that connects this to a larger pattern we've been exploring here on Lofi Apocrypha. This is not just a gacha game drama. This is a case study in selective outrage as identity performance, okay? The boycott, the funeral flowers, the pomelo leaves, the cow dung. I will never stop saying cow dung at this point. This is not feedback. This is theater. This is peak camp. This is, look how much I care, performed at maximum volume. The scold as social performance. We've talked about this before. Public piety is not the thing you're opposing. It's about demonstrating to your community that you are the most vigilant defender of the space, that you are Batman taking care of Gotham City, that you care the most, that you will go the furthest. And the thing about that dynamic, the genuinely dangerous thing, is that it escalates. If the person next to you posts an angry comment, you start posting a boycott call. If they post a boycott call, you start sending funeral flowers. And if they send funeral flowers, cow dung. You chose cow poop, guys. There's always a next level. And once the competition starts, nobody can afford to be the reasonable one. Because being reasonable in a fandom looks like you don't care enough. So what happens? The most extreme voices set the terms of the debate, and the actual thing being debated, a werewolf in a fantasy game, a character design, a creative choice, becomes almost irrelevant. The object of the outrage is just the stage. Your performance is the point. And I want to be clear. The English-speaking fandom is now furious about the cancellation. They wanted Valko. I wanted Valko, and I don't even play the game. They were excited about him. And now they're watching the Chinese fan base celebrate his removal while their own excitement gets steamrolled. Both sides feel betrayed, and ultimately nobody won. The company's apologizing. The character is gone. The fandom is at war with itself. So what was the objective here, guys? Who okayed this project? And did anyone run this by the board of directors? Conclusion. One of humanity's most reliable patterns is that we cannot let each other have nice things. We cannot let a fantasy game just be a freaking fantasy game. We cannot let a werewolf exist in a room that already has a dragon and a merman without turning to biological warfare. We cannot let a company try something new without making them regret it. The universe remains complicated. The questions will remain unanswered. One fictional werewolf got cancelled before he ever got launched. The poor thing. Not because he was a bad character, or because his story was poorly written, or because players gave him a chance and rejected him on the merits. He got cancelled because real humans with real feelings could not handle a wolf in a room full of fantasy creatures without turning it into an existential threat to the community and to a biohazard to the developers. The cryptid is concerned. And the cryptid is, quite frankly, exhausted. The cryptid is going to touch grass. Thank you for tuning into Lofi Apocrypha. This has been your host, Mom Chalan, and I'll talk to y'all again soon. Bye!